Hello and welcome to Mangator 96, and today we're going to talk about One Piece. Today's topic will be the bounties of the Straw Hat crew after Wano. I know that this topic has been done to death at this point, so I won't be just giving some random numbers and call it a day, but rather I will take some scenarios that could happen which would affect the bounty. The first one being, what will the news say about the war on Onigashima? There are three possibilities on how this could play out which would affect the bounties of the Straw Hats. The first one is also the one that happened the most times in this story so far with Luffy's achievements, and that's downplaying or outright covering up what happened. With the first time that this happened being back in East Blue, where the Marines didn't know about Luffy's fight with Captain Kuro, which would have made Luffy's first bounty a bit higher than it was. While the first one was completely unintentional on the part of the Marines, the other two times with Crocodile and Moria it wasn't. While I don't think that they can keep the news that an emperor or two had been defeated a secret like they did with Moria, but what they can do is spin the news so that it would look like that an infight between Kaido and Big Mom is the major cause of their defeat, which would negatively impact the increase of the Straw Hats bounty. The second scenario being that the news is relatively spot on what actually happened in the manga. This has happened only once so far with Luffy's breakout of Impel Down and his participation in the Paramount War, where despite Luffy pulling some outrageous stunts, his bounty has only increased 100 million, as the world could clearly see that he was severely lacking in strength, which could also apply after Wano, as it isn't the same in saying Luffy defeated Kaido and saying Luffy defeated Kaido after Kaido fought 9 powerful samurai, 5 members of the first generation, his son that has a mythical zone, Delfruit, without any rest, and then he was defeated by Luffy. It's clearly what news would result in a higher bounty for Luffy. The third one is that the news is exaggerated like it happened after Enies Lobby and Whole Cake Island. While the former was more of hiding the incompetence of the Marines and the world government, the latter was clearly exaggerated so that Luffy would look like the big winner in Whole Cake Island. If the news were to be spread like that after Wano, then I have no doubt that Luffy could even surpass Whitebeard's bounty, with the majority of the Straw Hats getting 1 billion plus bounties. Other than the news, what will determine the increase of the bounties will be how many emperors will fall, as it isn't the same if only Kaido falls or both Kaido and Big Mom fall in this arc. This will also play a huge role in the post-Wano bounties. The last thing that I want to mention before going over the potential Straw Hat bounties after Wano is the fact that anybody that is connected to a particular incident will get an even bounty increase, as we saw in Dressrosa, where the majority got a 50 million bounty increase. Something similar is likely to happen after Wano, so the question here is, how much will that be? Considering for taking down Doflamingo the increase was 50 million, with Doflamingo being the most influential pirate in the world right after the 4 emperors. But the problem that Doflamingo and his crew have is their strength, which definitely decreased the number that would have otherwise been given to just 50 million. So the question here is, how much will the Marines give for taking part in an incident where an emperor was defeated? I debated between 5 and 10 times more than what they got after Dressrosa. Personally, I think that 500 million would be an appropriate increase for taking part in defeating an emperor. But considering that there is a chance of 2 emperors going down, which would mean that everybody would get a billion bounty increase, that's overkill, so for the sake of this video, I selected 250 million rather than 500 million, so that the bounties don't become too crazy. Now it's time to get to the bounties, where I won't give 1 potential bounty, but rather 6 potential bounties to each Straw Hat, considering the factors on the news and how many emperors will fall at the end of Wano. Let's start with Luffy, who currently has a 1.5 billion bounty. It's pretty clear that he will be the one to defeat Kaido in this arc, but for the potential defeat of Big Mom in this arc, I don't think that he will play a major part in it. Now for Luffy's first bounty, where the news downplays his contribution with only Kaido going down, is 2.5 billion, considering that Luffy got a billion increase where he didn't take down a Yonko with the news being exaggerated. Him taking down a Yonko where the news downplays his part in it would result in a similar increase of 1 billion in my opinion. For Luffy's second bounty, where the news downplays his contribution with both Kaido and Big Mom being defeated, is 2 billion and 750 million. As I said before, even if both Yonko are defeated in this arc, I don't think that Luffy will play any part in Big Mom's defeat, so he will get the 250 million increase for being a part of a Yonko defeat like the others. For Luffy's third bounty, where the news are relatively accurate about what happened with only Kaido going down, is 3 billion. I think that will be a justifiable increase considering on how he managed to defeat Kaido. It isn't too little or too much in my opinion. For Luffy's fourth bounty, where the news are relatively accurate about what happened with both Kaido and Big Mom being defeated, is 3 billion and 250 million. It's the same thought process with the last one. For Luffy's fifth bounty, where the news are exaggerated with what happened with only Kaido going down, is 4.5 billion. A 3 billion increase in that case is reasonable. For Luffy's sixth bounty, where the news are exaggerated with what happened with both Kaido and Big Mom being defeated, is 5 billion and 150 million. This one is a bit different than the other ones, where both Yonko went down. As the news was exaggerated, they gave Luffy credit for something that happened in the fight with Big Mom that he didn't do, so he received more than the usual 250 million for taking part in defeating an emperor. Moving on to Zoro, who currently has a 320 million bounty. His big contribution so far was in the fight on the roof, with him potentially fighting King. For the sake of this video, he defeats King. For Zoro's first bounty, where the news downplays his contribution with only Kaido going down, is 770 million, with him receiving 250 for taking part in defeating an emperor, 100 million for his display on the roof, and another 100 for defeating King. For Zoro's second bounty, where the news downplays his contribution with both Kaido and Big Mom being defeated, is 1 billion and 20 million. The reasoning is the same as before, with the addition of 250 million for taking down Big Mom. For Zoro's third bounty, where the news are relatively accurate about what happened with only Kaido going down, is 1 billion and 70 million, with him receiving 250 for taking part in defeating an emperor, 250 million for his display on the roof, and 250 for defeating King. For Zoro's fourth bounty, where the news are relatively accurate about what happened with both Kaido and Big Mom being defeated, is 1 billion and 320 million. The reasoning is the same as before, with the addition of 250 million for taking down Big Mom. For Zoro's fifth bounty, where the news are exaggerated with what happened with only Kaido going down, is 1 billion and 570 million, with him receiving 250 for taking part in defeating an emperor, 500 million for his display on the roof, and 500 million for defeating King. For Zoro's sixth bounty, where the news are exaggerated with what happened with both Kaido and Big Mom being defeated, is 1 billion 820 million. I don't think that I need to explain why at this point. Moving on to Sanji, who currently has a bounty of 330 million. Sanji so far had a brief fight with King. He is currently fighting Queen. Besides this, he has been more running than anything else, but I could see him coming in clutch at the end of the arc as he did in Enies lobby with the Gates of Justice. For Sanji's first bounty, where the news downplays his contribution with only Kaido going down, is 680 million, with him receiving 250 for taking part in defeating an emperor and 100 million for defeating Queen. For Sanji's second bounty, where the news downplays his contribution with both Kaido and Big Mom being defeated, is 930 million, adding 250 million for defeating Big Mom. For Sanji's third bounty, where the news are relatively accurate about what happened with only Kaido going down, is 830 million, with him receiving 250 for taking part in defeating an emperor and an additionally 250 for defeating Queen. For Sanji's fourth bounty, where the news are relatively accurate about what happened with both Kaido and Big Mom being defeated, is 1 billion and 80 million, adding 250 millions for Big Mom. For Sanji's fifth bounty, where the news are exaggerated with what happened with only Kaido going down, is 1 billion and 80 million, with him receiving 250 for taking part in defeating an emperor and 500 million for defeating Queen. For Sanji's sixth bounty, where the news are exaggerated with what happened with both Kaido and Big Mom being defeated, is 1 billion 330 million, adding 250 million from Big Mom. Moving on to Nami, who currently has a bounty of 66 million. Her contribution so far was in defeating Ulte. For Nami's first bounty, where the news downplays her contribution with only Kaido going down, is 366 million, with her receiving 250 for taking part in defeating an emperor and an additional 50 million for defeating Ulte. For Nami's second bounty, where the news downplays her contribution with both Kaido and Big Mom being defeated, is 616 million, adding 200 millions for Big Mom. For Nami's third bounty, where the news are relatively accurate about what happened with only Kaido going down, is 466 million, with her receiving 250 for taking part in defeating an emperor and an additional 150 million for defeating Ulte. For Nami's fourth bounty, where the news are relatively accurate about what happened with both Kaido and Big Mom being defeated, is 760 million, adding 250 millions for Big Mom. For Nami's fifth bounty, where the news are exaggerated with what happened with only Kaido going down, is 566 million, with her receiving 250 for taking part in defeating an emperor and 250 for defeating Ulte. For Nami's sixth bounty, where the news are exaggerated with what happened with both Kaido and Big Mom being defeated, is 816 million, adding 250 millions for Big Mom. Moving on to Usopp, who currently has a bounty of 200 million. He really hasn't done anything of significance in this arc so far. He won't be getting any bounty increase other than the Yonko ones in the category of downplaying news, which will result in 400 million or 700 million bounties. For the second category, I will give him 50 million as he did contribute a little, so his bounty will be 500 million or 750 million. And for the last category, I will give him an additional 100 million increase, so it would mean bounties of 550 millions or 800 millions. Moving on to Chopper, who has a bounty of 100 berry. The same what applies to Usopp applies to Chopper as well, and he won't be getting a joke bounty anymore, so for the first category, Chopper's bounty will be 250 million and 100 berries or 500 million and 100 berries. For the second category, I will give Chopper a 50 million increase like with Usopp, so his bounty will be 300 million and 100 berries or 550 million and 100 berries. For the third category, I will increase his bounty by 100 million, so his bounty will be 350 million and 100 berries or 600 million and 100 berries. Moving on to Frankie, whose current bounty is 94 million. He has a similar situation like Nami, so he will get a similar increase like her and anyone else who defeats a Tobiropo, with them gaining 50, 150 or 250 millions depending on how the news was for defeating the Tobiropo. So for Frankie in the first category, it will be 394 million or 644 million. For the second category, it will be 494 million or 744 million bounties. And lastly, for the third category, it will be 594 million or 844 million bounty. Moving on to Robin, who currently has a 130 million bounty. The same applies for her what applied for Frankie and Nami, with her defeating Black Maria. So for the first category, her bounty will be 430 million or 680 millions. For the second category, it will be 530 million or 780 million. And lastly, for the third category, her bounty will be 630 million or 880 millions. Moving on to Brook, who who currently has a bounty of 83 millions. Brook is in the same boat as Chopper and Usopp, so he will only receive a 50 million increase in the second category and a 100 million increase in the third. So for the first category, his bounty will be 333 million or 583 million. For the second category, his bounty will be 383 million or 633 million. And for the last third category, it will be 433 million or 683 million. Last but not least, Jinbe, who currently has a bounty of 438 million. Jinbe is in the same boat as Nami, Robin and Frankie, as he is fighting Who's Who. For the first category, his bounty will be 738 million or 988 million. For the second category, it will be 838 million or 1 billion and 88 million. For the third category, it will be 938 million or 1 billion and 188 million. This could all change depending on how Wano will develop from now on, but I believe that those bounties are a relatively good guess on what the Straw Hat's bounty will be after Wano, depending on what the news will say and how many Yonkos are defeated in it. And that will be all for this video. If you like this video, leave a like, leave your thoughts in the comments below, or subscribe to the channel for more One Piece content as well as other manga content, and until next time, take care.